Ladies and gentlemen, I do have an update for you. So APGov consumes my every waking hour. Yesterday I got so much done. I'm officially planned out and done through the rest of APGov, which gets me through week 13. I know you don't care, but it's exciting to me. With that being said, one of the things that is really stressing me out is the amount of primaries and court cases we have left. So, hear me out completely and utterly. This absolutely affects you and only affects Gov. So even if you were in AP World today, this is different. Okay, on Friday, you have your focus and your vocab due. Yes? Okay, that's not a change. That is literally what's happening. You are not taking a group test on Friday. There is no test on Friday. Okay, it's completely and utterly scratched because frankly you're all going to do incredibly well on it, and it's going to be kind of a waste of a period when in fact I need to be doing other things and you guys learning from it. So on Friday, you are going to do 50 points worth of primaries that will go into the grade book, which means you're literally copying me and getting 50 points. Can we agree? I am aware that you need points into the grade book to bump you up into the next section, yes? Which is why we're going to do 2 big primaries and 1 Supreme Court case equals 50 points. So instead of us kind of messing around for a period while you take a test as a group, aka let the 3 smart people in the room make the decisions, you will go ahead and get something actually done. Is everyone clear on the expectations here? So you're still getting 50 points in there. The extra credit is still going to be added. In the grade book, I will put 1 point, and if you turn in the extra credit, it'll be 15 points, which is exactly how the weighting would happen on the test. Is everyone clear? I think it's actually a little more generous because if you miss a couple questions, then you'd be down, but it works. Grant.
So is there any more tests in the...
Oh yeah, dude, you got tests for days coming at you, but I gotta get our feet underneath us and I don't have time to waste around. Now, if you are actually taking a legit test where you were sitting there by yourself taking a test, I would totally do it. But I'm not changing from a group test to an individual test because that's rude as hell. Can we agree? So I'd rather just scrap it and get to what I need to do, which is going to be those primaries that I gotta cross them off. So instead of us wasting kind of a period getting points, why don't we earn those points by learning something? So that is what is happening on Friday. So there is no test, like paper test on week 8. I have it ready to go, and it's a really lovely test. I'm actually very proud of it. But we are not going to take it because I got to get us on schedule. And I am telling you, week 9 is going to be kind of a shit show. I'm only teaching 2 days. You have PSAT day on Wednesday, and you are testing on Thursday, and it's individual. I don't give a shit. I've scraped 2 tests. We're done with this. You are taking a test next Thursday on week 9 content. You will pick up that stuff tomorrow. I'll even give it to you tomorrow so you have a full week. Okay, we are back on schedule. You are testing on Thursdays. Everyone clear? I am only going to see you 2 days. Monday, Tuesday, I will be teaching. Wednesday, you have the PSAT. Thursday, you are testing. Is everyone clear? So, that is what is happening next week, and then for the rest of eternity, we'll be on schedule going forward. Jordan.
The quarter ends Wednesday, right?
The what?
The quarter.
The quarter ends Wednesday, technically, because we started on a Wednesday, but your last grades to go in will be submitted that Thursday.
So the test will count?
The test will count in week 9 content, yes ma'am. So it'll be on your first quarter stuff. So technically it's in quarter 2, but it will go into your grade book as week 9. Okay, so next week's test, next Thursday, is your last points going in. You do have the extra credit is due on Friday. There's no extension to that if you forget because it's going to be delivered Saturday morning. Everyone good? Now, I will tell you right now, you are not being tested individually this week on this content, but it is all over your midterm and absolutely all over the AP exam. Oh, and Alex, this is like a big deal in society today in 2022. So, on the top of your notebook, Judicial Branch, week 8. Okay, so the Judicial Branch, ladies and gentlemen, you need to know it is created in Article 3 of the Constitution. It is created in Article 3 of the Constitution. Inside Article created in Article 3, and it only creates the branch and the Supreme Court. It only creates the branch and the Supreme Court directly. Okay? You need to know that it is Congress who has the power to create all of the lower courts. The Supreme Court is the top tier court because it's called the Supreme. Yeah, it's called Supreme because it reigns supreme. It's the highest in the land. Okay, every court underneath it is created by Congress. Okay, so can the judicial branch make more courts? No, it's a check on their power. They can't just start creating things and multiplying. It is Congress that creates them. It's a huge deal. Yes, sir.
Congress has the power to what?
It's right here to create courts. Okay, you need to copy this down. Dual system of courts, you need to copy this. I don't tell you that often, but you need to copy that. Okay, so our court system today in 2022 is a two-court system. You have federal courts and you have state courts. Federal courts are about if you break federal law, you go to federal court. If you break a state law, you go to, look at you guys. So, if I kill someone and bury them in Plant City, am I going to federal court or state court? State court. If I kill someone and bury their body in Georgia, I'm going to federal court. There you go. So, when we're talking about federal and state courts, it is based on the laws in which you are breaking. Now, of course, the largest and most public court cases going on right now are against Donald Trump. Now, none of the cases have officially begun, so we don't have a verdict to know if he is guilty or not. However, there are cases being brought right now against Donald Trump in both federal courts and state courts. Right now, the Southern District of New York is going against Trump because they're accusing him. Remember, nothing has been confirmed by the court. It hasn't gone to trial yet. The Southern District of New York is saying that Trump inflated his real estate for loans and then deflated the value in order to pay less in taxes. That breaks New York City codes, so that would be in what type of courts? State court. The FBI is saying that Donald Trump illegally took documents from the White House and is holding them and not protecting them correctly. That is what he's being accused of. That's a federal crime, so he is being accused in a federal court. So he has two different types of cases going against him currently. The interesting thing is, which is why this is like the perfect topic of the day, is that last night Donald Trump officially applied to the Supreme Court. So I've got all three tiers of government here. This is why. Officially asked the Supreme Court to interfere and overturn a lower court's hearing. So like it is like the perfect cacophony of these components. Now, of course, none of these things have actually gone to trial, to jury, to verdict. So all of these court cases could be thrown out. But these are interesting things that are happening, and hopefully you've heard of these things to help make it a little more realistic. Here we go. In each of these courts, whether federal or state, you can be tried for criminal offenses or civil offenses. A criminal case is when the government charges an individual with a crime. So, if you bring a firework to campus, that is a criminal law. It's against the law to bring any type of firearms or any type of thing into a school. If Jordan owes me $1,300 and refuses to pay me, I can sue her in a civil case. Okay? Now, going back to the Donald Trump thing. The Mar-a-Lago secured documents, FBI raid, that one is a criminal case. The one in New York saying that Trump is inflating his values and then deflating it for taxes is actually a civil case. So it's all right there. Now none of this has been acquitted.
So it's dispute between two,
Huh? Sorry, I just got a random text. What, my darling? Oh, it says between the two parties. Okay, so civil and criminal. If you get sued, it's civil. There you go. If you get arrested, it's there. Oh, guys. Oh my God, that was beautiful. That was almost 100% participation. Is this a period? Shit's getting wild. Here we go. Okay, judicial branch. So you need to know the Judiciary Act of 1789. The Judiciary Act of 1979 creates the federal courts. Okay? Creates the federal courts by Congress. Okay? And you need to know Congress is going to create the U.S. Court of Appeals in 1891. What do you got? It's literally up here, guys. Judiciary Act of 1789, and then you need to know the U.S. Court of Appeals. Congress creates both of these. In 1789, through the Judiciary Act, they create all the lower courts. Okay? So, the federal courts, and then in 1891, they create the Court of Appeals. What is an appeal, Jake?
when you I was thinking that you need to go to the next court.
Yeah, to ask for it to be overturned. Okay? So, an appeal means you go to the next court to be overturned. Okay? So, if you get arrested today for killing a dog, you run over a dog. Okay? You get arrested. I don't know if that's criminal. That's not criminal. Would it be criminal? It's not animal. I don't know. Anyway, let's pick a simple crime. If you burn down a house. Things are getting aggressive here. Here we go. If you burn down someone's house, that's arson. That is a crime. You get arrested. If you go to trial and you get sent to jail, but you feel like you have been treated unfairly in this trial by your lawyer, by the judge, whatever it is, you still have to go to jail. But while you're sitting in prison, you can appeal the court. You take it from the state, then you bring it to the U.S. Appeals. At the U.S. Appeals Court, then they will hear your case and see if there's any ground to stand on. If there's any ground, then they will present your case to a federal judge. If the federal judge will hear it, then they could overturn it or could continue to keep you in prison and sustain your current position. If it goes to the federal court and you do not like what you get, you can then push it to the Supreme Court. Now, there's a lot more complication in there, yes, but that's essentially how it goes. So, at the Supreme Court, they only hear what? No, it's a lot of Constitution, but at the Supreme Court, they only hear appeals. Write that down. You don't go to the Supreme Court and actually hold a trial. That's not how things get done at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is only hearing appeals of a case that has gone through the whole system. It takes years and years and years to get in front of the Supreme Court. It goes through, I think the average is like 15 judges at different levels before it hits the Supreme Court. So it's not very common. Now, at the beginning of this, I told you Donald Trump has a criminal, all those other components, federal and state problems, but he also last night petitioned the Supreme Court to overturn a lower court's hearing. That is incredibly rare. You just don't get to say, hey, Supreme Court, I need you to look at this. Why does he get to do that? Because he's the former president of the United States, and what is happening to the president of the United States is a huge weight on this nation. Yes? We're already incredibly divided. So if people think Trump is being treated unfairly, then what's going to happen? Chaos. So the Supreme Court, it seems like they haven't officially come out to say they will hear the case, but they are briefing on it. and it sounds like they're probably going to take it. Why are they probably going to take it? To not have chaos in the streets, yes? Okay, I think we can all agree the United States, we're a little tumultuous right now, okay? So, with that being said, that is not common. If you're a former president of the United States, you can say, hey, Supreme Court, I need you to look at this, and they probably will, yes? But you, in whatever problem you have, is going to take years and years to get in front. Okay, so, types of federal courts is your next heading. Write it down. Types of federal courts. At the very bottom of the federal court system are district courts. So say today, on your way home, knocking on wood, this doesn't happen to any of you, you hit a mailbox on your way home, and your neighbor sees you, and you run, or you flee from the scene. The police come and collect you at your house, and you go, and you're put on trial. You go to trial at a district court. Okay? Your district courts are all created in the Judiciary Act of 1789. Write that down. These are when all of them are created by Congress. Okay? Now, every single state has at least one. Which state has the least? No, Rhode Island's pretty population. It's pretty dense. Alaska only has one. Why does Alaska only have one? Yeah, it has like no one living there, and the people that are living there are being paid to live there. Okay, so district courts. Every state has one. Highly dense states have more. We have, I believe, 12 here in the state of Florida. I think New York has like 20-something. California, I think, is like high 20s, low 30s. Okay? But those are the lower levels. Okay? Now, judges serve for life. You need to know that. They are appointed by the President of the United States and confirmed by the Senate. These are federal judgeships. We have a federal district court here in Tampa. It's on Florida, I think it is. I don't know what street it is. I don't know what streets are in downtown. But you've probably seen it, yes? Have you seen it? The white building, beautiful columns, nice walkway up. Okay. That is our district building. Okay, so at the bottom you have the district court. If you go to the district court and you get a verdict you didn't like, that you feel like is unjust, after you get sentenced to prison or whatever it is, while you're sitting in prison, you write an appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals. The U.S. Court of Appeals is above the district. So if you're a U.S. appeals judge, are you more important or less important than a district judge? More important. There you go. Okay? Now, they are created by the Federal Courts Act of 1891. Okay, so those two acts, we now see what they actually create. And there are only 13 of these in the country. Write that down. There are only 13 U.S. Court of Appeals in the country. They do everything by region. We're in the southeast, so how many Court of Appeals do we have? One. I think it's in Atlanta. I'm not 100% sure. I know it's not in Tampa. It might be in Miami. So we have one for this whole southeast, and it's throughout the whole country. Okay? So with that being said, you are not trying cases, you are hearing appeals. Make sure you are writing that down. You are not hearing cases or trying cases, you are hearing appeals. So, are they really talking to witnesses? No. They're really talking to two lawyers on both sides. Okay? Witnesses are called very infrequently because the testimony should be well withstood in the documents. Does that make sense? Okay, when you watch like SVU and stuff, is that U.S. Court of Appeals or is it district courts? District courts if it's a federal crime. Okay, so You need to know, put a big star. U.S. Courts of Appeals send cases to the Supreme Court. So how many courts can send cases to the Supreme Court? 13. Only those 13 can send something to go sit in front of our justices. That's it. Okay? So, it is these 13 that send it. Put another star. This is to try to help the Supreme Court from getting backed up. If the Supreme Court was getting every single appeal, how well high functioning is the Supreme Court doing? They're not. By having the U.S. Court of Appeals, they're trying to regulate the cases that just need to be thrown out, and they're pushing the ones that need to actually be sought out. Okay? Now, in the Court of Appeals, it is 3 judges per case. 3 judges per case. So, in your district courts, how many judges hear your case? 1. Come on, we've all seen SVU. Okay? In the U.S. Court of Appeals, you get 3. And then your final court that you can get heard in is the Supreme. And how many justices hear you there? 9. We have 9. Okay. In the U.S. Supreme Court, this is the highest court in the land. So, if the U.S. Supreme Court throws out your case, what happens to your case from there? It's literally completely dead. There's literally nothing else you could say. So last night, Donald Trump pushed a case to the Supreme Court saying, I want you to overturn this. In the next month, we should get a response from the Supreme Court. And if they throw it out, what happens to this appeal? It's dead. It's dead. It cannot be overturned by any other court in the land. If the Supreme Court hears the case, then it will trigger a huge reaction throughout all of Donald Trump's court problems. Does that make sense? So it's a big deal. So waiting on what's going to happen will affect both of his federal and state problems. All right, here we go. So your Supreme Court, you need to know it has 9 justices, not judges. We don't call them judges, we call them justices because they are the highest in the land. There are 9 of them. Fun fact, the Supreme Court just opened on Monday. The official start of the Supreme Court session is the first Monday in October, which is pretty cool. So it just opened. This Supreme Court in 2022 is the most diverse we've ever had in history. We have 2 blacks, 2 Hispanics, 4 whites, and within those people, we have Catholics, Jews, we have Protestants, we have, what else do we have? We have 2 moms, 4 women, 5 dudes. Pretty diverse. Most diverse one we've ever had. What do you got?
When is it close?
May, June, depending on how many dockets they have or appeals that they are formally going through. What do you got?
What do you mean open and close? Like
They don't take, they essentially, and this is information I've kind of learned this week. I know about their docket. I didn't officially know it happened until I saw it on the news and I was watching something about it. And I was like, oh my God, this is my content. It opens. They don't hear anything for a couple months to give them a break. They go on vacation and shit. Like RBG, who died, yes. The chick with the lace collars and stuff like that. She's like a feminist icon, yeah. She was on the Supreme Court. She used to vacation with one of the conservative judges, and one of my favorite pictures of RBG is her just chilling on a camel in front of the Great Pyramids in Egypt. You don't think that's funny? That's funny. And she still had her little doily thing on. It was the cutest thing you've ever seen. No, she wasn't, because that would just be over the top. But she was wearing a shawl kind of thing, because the chick weighed 70 pounds. So she was probably always cool. Anyway. We are a little off track talking about their Egyptian vacation. Okay. There are 9 justices. It just opened. When we talk about their docket, it is essentially the time periods that they work. It is October to May, June-ish. That's the typical amount, and then they do a recess where they are allowed to carry on with their lives. Now, when we're talking about these justices, you need to write this down. It is important for you to know. They hear cases of appeal. They only hear appeals. You get that, yes? Okay, they're not trying cases. Luke, you better pick your head up if you think I'm doing this for fun. They only hear appeals. All 9 of them sit in a big room, like kind of looks like Harry Potter, like tribunes. Have you seen Harry Potter? You know how they have all the wizards and then they have them like standing up looking up at it? It kind of looks like that. Okay, so they have the 9 justices, and then they only have the 2 lawyer teams. And that is all that are discussing. The lawyers present their case, and the judges can ask questions throughout the whole conversation. You need to know that. The justices and the lawyers present their content, then the justices can ask direct questions. The other lawyer presents, the justices can have their own conversation. Every justice writes a brief. And you need to know that brief, B-R-I-E-F, okay? These briefs are their opinion on the case. Give me 2 seconds, David. I'm not ignoring you. Every justice writes a brief about their opinion on the case. Whoever has the majority wins. There's 9 justices, so there's never a tie. If 5 of them all agree, then it wins. Okay? Or it's dismissed and it gets thrown out. With that being said, the Chief Justice, write this down, you do need to know that term. The Chief Justice issues the opinion on behalf of the Supreme Court. So each justice writes a brief, then hands it to the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice reads through their briefs and creates one final opinion. That final opinion is then presented to the United States people. Now, here's the interesting thing. Sometimes Chief Justices include people who approved and people who disapproved in the opinion. Sometimes they just include their own opinion in here. It passed or did not pass. It depends on the Chief Justice. David, what is your question?
Do they have the defendants in there as well?
No, because they have all their testimony. Very rarely do witnesses get called to the Supreme Court to testify, because at this point, if you had a case that made it all the way to Supreme Court, you've been testifying in court like 15 to 18 times. We have all of your testimony. So they have already read through all the documents, seen all of your testimony, and they know it pretty comfortably as well as your lawyers do, so they don't need you unless there's a clarifying point.
Do they have defendants in
Nope, they have no one. It's just the lawyers talking to the Supreme Court.
No, I mean like the U.S. Court of Appeals, they have defendants.
Usually not. They try not to.
So where do they?
They're in the district courts.
District court.
Sometimes they are in the federal courts if they need a clarifying component. It's more common to see like witnesses and stuff in federal courts of appeal than it's very rare in the Supreme Court. Sometimes they show up just to hear the opinions because it's their case, they care, but they're not like talking. Like you're not going to answer questions from RBG, you know, or Kavanaugh, who RBG is obviously dead because that would be weird if she showed up and started like haunting the halls, but Kavanaugh is not going to ask a witness a question. It's all lawyers talking the whole time. What do you got? They can either retire or die. So your Supreme Court appointment is for the rest of your life. So, okay. So one of the biggest, as I told you, the Supreme Court just opened on Monday. The Supreme Court has the lowest opinion by Americans than ever before. The lowest previous opinion of the Supreme Court happened in the late 70s, and that was a 35% approval. Today, right now, in 2022, the Supreme Court has an approval of 22%. It is atrocious, and there's a couple different reasons for it. It's because most Americans believe that the Supreme Court is becoming political, whether because they like it being more political because it obviously has become more conservative, or you think it's become political and is taking away rights. It's either on either side. There are two major citations of why it has become political is because of Mitch McConnell. Under Obama, one of the Supreme Court justices died. And it was, I believe, like 3 months before the election of Obama's last year. Mitch McConnell came forward and said it's too close to an election for a president to appoint a Supreme Court judge. So he, as the Senate Majority Leader, blocked Obama from appointing a judge to the Supreme Court. Blocked it. Obviously, Obama left, Trump came into office. As soon as Trump came into office, what did he fill immediately? The Supreme Court, of course. He's entitled as the President of the United States. There's a vacancy. Here we go. During his term as president, he implemented 3. The final one is the most controversial one. At the end of, I believe, like 2 months out, in less time than Obama had, there was RBG's death. Less time than Obama had, RBG died, and Mitch McConnell allowed Trump to appoint a Supreme Court justice. 3 months versus like 2 months. So, if it was too late in the term for Obama, why was it okay for Trump? That's the first major political argument people have about this particular court being politicized. That is the major argument, and I think we can all agree it's not the greatest of looks. The second major criticism of this particular Supreme Court is the fact that they have overturned Roe versus Wade. I have to teach you Roe versus Wade. I am not teaching it today. But the overturning of Roe versus Wade, President Trump appointed 3 Supreme Court justices. The court went from liberal to conservative. One of the first major decisions this court did is overturn Roe versus Wade. Why is that a big deal? It is because it's considered super precedent. It has been argued in the Supreme Court multiple times and through all of the district courts and U.S. Court of Appeals thousands of times, and it has stood the test of time, and it was considered super precedent. As in, this has been tried, it hasn't been overturned. All of a sudden, they have now flipped it. Now, if you agree with it or not agree with it, that is your personal opinion. But why does it matter? It matters to every single person in the room, whether you agree with it or not, is because if they could overturn this super precedent, they can overturn everything. So, the previous, all of these Supreme Courts that have opened have always kind of agreed on the super precedents and kind of leaving them. This one has overturned it, and that has now opened up a lot of different things, like gay rights is now going to be challenged in this docket. Oh my God, what is it called? It starts with an A. It's like applying to colleges and making sure equal employment opportunities and access to colleges. Affirmative action is on the docket. They are literally arguing it right now in the Supreme Court. That is not considered a super precedent, but it is a major precedent. Okay, so these are things. So if they can flip that, they can flip other things. These are big concerns, and we can also, the third major reason why this is one of the most controversial and such lowly held opinions is because we can all agree that the presidential appointments of these justices have been incredibly inflamed. Can we agree? You must remember Brett Kavanaugh's appointment, yes? Brett Kavanaugh, he got appointed by Trump. During the appointment process, a woman came out who said that Brett Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her while in high school, and she stood in front of the nation, in front of the Senate, and described that and talked about it. Brett Kavanaugh said some very interesting things. He was super quoted a million times about I love beer. I really like beer. He said that multiple times. It was one of the more lighter topics of this appointment, but he did get appointed to the to this court. So they have a lot of scandal in the appointment processes, and We have the super precedent of Roe, and political opinion is incredibly low. So it is a huge deal that drastically affects the American population. What do you got?
So when you say overturning, like they don't talk about it anymore?
What do you mean?
Good afternoon, but I don't see the part of the announcement.
What do you mean? They overturned it? You, are you talking about Roe versus Wade? Okay, Roe versus Wade, we're going to get into all the details of because I have to teach it to you because it's required in my content, not because I'm trying to have this major political conversation, but it's on your content, which they haven't officially removed it since it's been overturned, so I have to teach it. With that being said, when we go through it, we'll talk about what it means. And by overturning it, you were protected by law to have access to an abortion. Now that's been overturned and thrown to the states. So a state gets to decide if a woman has access to abortion or not. Beforehand, every woman in the country was protected and was given the access to an abortion to at least the 6-week mark. Now that has been changed. So it's been overturned, so now states get to decide. Yes?
Does overturn mean it's like completely closed so no one can ever like re-overturn?
It means someone's got to go from a district court to a court of appeals back up to the Senate, back up to the Supreme Court, and that takes years and years and years and years. So it's a slow process. Now, you might be thinking, well, if the Supreme Court decides something, does that mean we're stuck with it? No, it doesn't. Okay? It means that there are multiple ways. There's been unpopular things passed by the Supreme Court, and it's part of our checks and balances. All right, we'll quit there. Do you have any other questions about the Supreme Court? It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. The Roe versus Wade thing is a very controversial thing. I'm sure you've heard of that. But the political opinion of the Supreme Court right now being as low as it is rather shocking. Because remember, it is supposed to be the most atypical, apolitical of all the branches. There you go.
Can they overturn the overturning, or is it just?
No, you can't overturn an overturn. You have to go back from the bottom and work your way up. It's very complicated. Now, there are pros and cons to absolutely everything. I'm trying to play both sides. What do you got? Yeah, this Friday. Like Friday, because I'm dropping it off at 4 o'clock at the place that's